Right, welcome to part 2 of this Greco mint collection, 1984 mint collection guitar in for a refret. I say welcome to part 2, it's kind of a non-event at the moment because I've just pulled a fret. I'm wondering why I couldn't get any relief in this neck, and I've tried a couple of times clamping it. I've not clamped it with heat, but I was a bit reluctant to do that with the fret still in. But I've clamped it a couple of ways and it's not had it, and I thought, I bet this is a refret, and it's had fret wire in there with a wide tang, and lo and behold, it's exactly what's happened. I should have noticed sooner because the nibs have been cut off this binding on here. If you look closely, really closely, you see the nibs have been cut. So it has been refretted, and it's been refretted with fret wire with a 0.6mm tang. Your tang is, I've just pulled a fret out. We're done with it, lost it. Anyway, there's some fret wire. It's what I was going to put in Osco 3mm. But this is the tang, the part that sits inside the guitar, and it's barbed. But the tang itself, that strip of metal, is 0.6mm wide on this. I wager, I won't even wager it, I guarantee that the tang on the fret wire in there is 0.6mm. And by rights, it needs to be 0.5mm. So that means over the length of 22 frets or so, you've got about 1.2mm extra width on there. Now it might not seem a lot, but it is enough to stop you getting any relief in the neck. So I'm not using Osco fret wire in this guitar anymore. This is a 3mm stuff. I'll save this for another one of Mike Newman's. I've gone and ordered some Jescar jumbo fret wire, and it's 2.8mm wide, but it's 1.4mm high, so it's a little bit higher anyway. But the tang is only 0.5, in fact it's 0.508mm width. So a little bit narrower, and it will probably make all the difference. So all I can do with this now is remove the frets and wait for the new fret wire to arrive before I can commence the work. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the frets today. I'm going to get my soldering iron out, heat them up. I'm going to remove the frets today, and then I'm going to see if there's any relief in the neck, or see if we can get any relief. Well, we'll just see if there is any relief in the neck. If there's not, we then will treat it with a little bit of heat and we'll do a back clamp and see where we are. But I'm thinking we're going to be alright, so stay tuned. Welcome back, friends, and after 5 days of clamping and gentle heat treatment, we have relief in this Greco neck. I had to gently clamp, well, I clamped it really quite well. We got a block in here, clamped it both ends. Slightly bowed the neck and treated it with gentle, basically with a hairdryer on a hot setting. Just gave it 10-minute blasts every now and again from underneath, and I'm going to show that we have some relief in the neck. At first I didn't think we were going to get it. It was only after I started using the heat treatment it actually started to work and take. So I'm going to put on the backlight and I'm going to show where we are. And there you go. The truss rod is loose, and we have a little relief in the neck. To get rid of that relief, all you do is tighten the truss rod. So we are going to be able to get good relief now in the neck itself, and now I can continue with the refret. So without further ado, I'm going to prep the neck, clean the slots, and I'm going to prepare for the new frets going in. So stay tuned for that, and I'll be back with an update as and when. Good day, friends, and here we are with this 1984 Greco Mint Collection Les Paul in for a refret, and we are about to put the guitar on the neck jig. We're going to prepare the board ready for the new fret. So a couple of things I need to do. You can see the jig, or most of the jig wheel. You can see I have the guitar more or less horizontal. The camera may not show it looking perfectly horizontal. That's because the camera is at a weird angle, but that is more or less within a degree or two perfectly horizontal. I've got the 0 dials touching the bottom of the neck where it needs to be, but I've not got it supported yet because I've not set it level. I'm not going to do that just yet, but what I am going to do is I'm going to explain what we need to do next and how we go about it. So first I'm going to zoom in a little just to show you that the neck is more or less set straight. I will go across with a not straight edge, make sure that's perfectly level. I'll alter the truss rod accordingly to get it as level as I possibly can. And what we're going to do is we're going to re-radius this fingerboard. Now, I've been across and checked the radius of this neck, and by all accounts it should be a 12-inch radius, but I've found it closer to 10. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove material until we've got it to a 12. A 12 radius being slightly flatter. So we're going to slightly flatten this fingerboard, and how I'm going to do that is I've got 2 radius blocks, got a wooden one. It's already got sandpaper on there, 240 grit. I'll be changing that because that's been used. And I have a brand new aluminium one. I bought a full set of these last year. Not used them all yet. This one is still in its cellophane wrapping. It's not been out yet. I'll be taping this up, keeping it flat all the time. I'll be using just normal masking tape. Once that's done, I'll get some double-sided sticky tape, cover it in that, and we will go with some 240 grit sandpaper, which I buy on a roll, like so. And we will give it a few wipes across. I might even go with something a little bit more coarse using this one. I could go with something, some 80 or some 120, just to get it close to the mark, and we can finish off with 240 to smooth it off on the big one, which is likely what I will do. Now you do remember this neck came in dead straight. We had no relief in it at all, so I had it clamped up for 5 days. I eventually had to treat it on the 4th day with heat, 4th and 5th day. 3rd and 4th day, sorry, let it stand for another day. We did get some relief in there. Now, I've not been able to work on this for a good few days, or I've not really worked on anything for about a week, because my wife last week had an accident on an exercise bike, and basically the long and short of it was, when she was pedalling on the downstroke with the crank up, the pedal snapped off and the crank shot into her leg. It ripped her leg open. She's had 10 stitches. Praise the Lord, she got no long-term damage. She didn't rip any tendons or damage any muscle tissue or the bone. So she will scar, obviously, but you know, minimal damage really, and she's going to be okay. But because of that, I was doing everything else. I was doing all the housework, the shopping, cleaning everything. So I went on half time. In fact, I went on less than half time. I more or less shut the workshop. It's now the following Tuesday, and I am open again. And I'm not exactly up to speed, but I'm getting there. But everyone. I let everyone know where I was and what was happening, that work's going to be delayed and put off for a while, and even though all that was done, I did manage to finish 3 guitars this weekend, and they went back to their respective owners, one on Sunday, 2 yesterday. I've still got other stuff I'm working on, but let's stay on track, let's stay with this guitar. So like I say, I'm going to re-radius the whole fingerboard, and I'm going to radius it to 12 inches, so it's going to take a bit of work and quite a lot of sandpaper. But once we've got it to where we need it, I'll smooth it off. I'll probably finish off by hand with some 400 grit just to smooth it off nice. I will check all the fret slots, and I will then come back and I'll show you my new tool. In fact, I'll show you my new tool right now. This is a Hosco fret slot cleaning implement, and it basically is a saw that goes in the fret slots. It's 0.4mm kerf or 0.4mm cut. And it's like, it looks like a little hatchet, doesn't it? A little axe, but it isn't. These are actually saw blades on each side. So that is to go inside the binding and clear all the glue and the gunk out of the slot. So I'll be using this for the first time on this guitar. I've already had a little play with this and it works very, very well. Would you believe this cost me £25, 25 English pounds. This feels like a piece of bolter. It weighs about half an ounce. There's no weight to that at all, but very, very useful tool. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of use out of this, and a great little implement. So when you buy leafy tools, don't ever worry about the price. I mean, okay, if it's taking the mickey like Stu might do, then worry about the price. But if you can get £25 for that, it might seem a lot, right? But it isn't really, is it, for how much you're going to get, usually going to get out of it. In fact, it lasts me 2 years. That's £12.50 a year. It's £1 a month. You know what I mean? 3p a day. It's not money. But 25 quid. So what? If you keep that 5 years, it's £5 a year. It's nothing. Calm down. Stay calm. So that's it. I'm going to crack on with this. I don't know what I'm going to film. I've got so much work on right now. I'm not going to film as much as I normally do. But what I plan to do now first is I will get my notched straight edge. You'll take my word for this. I'm going to get my notched straight edge. Get the neck. It might not go exactly straight because I've had to I've had to put some bend in there, but we'll get it as close to straight as we possibly can from end to end, and we'll do the rest of the leveling with the radius block, radius beam and sandpaper. Once that's done, well, what we're going to do is first we're going to support the neck with these supports underneath. We're going to zero out on the dials. get everything locked in so it can't move. Then we're going to smooth off and we're going to sand the fingerboard with the neck as straight as is possible. I've got a little bit of tension on the truss rod, which I need now because I've put some relief in there. When it's loose, it's got a little bit of relief. You know, to tighten it a little just to get it straight. Like I say, we'll get as close as we can to perfectly straight, and then we'll do the sanding. And you must always remember to do that, otherwise you're going to knacker the neck up. Now, me being a neck and fret specialist, I don't knacker necks up, I fix them. So I'm going to crack on with this. I don't know what I'm going to film, but it's likely I will come back and show you the results. I'll be doing a little less video on some of my guitars at the moment, just so I can basically catch up and get on there. But you won't miss a trick. I'll let you know everything that happens, so stay tuned. Right, welcome back briefly. I just want to explain what these gauges are for, because someone asked me the other week what these dials are for, and I told them, I said, this is timing an egg. When I'm working away and I want some tea, I'm going to put some eggs on boil. We time my eggs. Well, we don't do that at all, actually. That's a joke. These are actually 0 gauge dials, and what you do is, I'm going to zoom in and show you. And you see, both these dials are pointing to 0, and they will do, as long as this neck doesn't move. And I've got the neck set up on the jig, but things, if this moves left or right, or up or down, these are going to come off 0, and I'll know the neck has moved, so I need to knock it back into position where it always goes back to 0. It means the neck will not move. I have it in a level position. I've straightened the neck on the truss rod the best I can, and I'm going to re-radius, there you go, and I've got it all supported underneath with the steel rods. And we've got it all strapped in that end and this end, so the neck should not move, but if it does move, these dials will tell me that it has moved, and we can get it back to where it needs to be. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a radius block. I'm just preparing one with double-sided sticky tape. It's got masking tape underneath, then double-sided sticky tape, and I've got it all smooth, nothing overlapping. And what I'll do is when I stick some sandpaper on there, it'll be a perfectly radiused, 12-inch radius in this case, perfectly radiused to what we want the fingerboard to be. And then I shall sand the fingerboard until we've got the exact radius we need, like so. So I'm going to crack on with that, and I will come back and show you the results later, so stay tuned for that. Welcome back, and this job's turned out to be a little bit bigger than I expected. Well, I knew that anyway. We're getting the bend out of the neck, or putting some bend or relief in the neck, but from what I know, I've spoken to the owner of this guitar, and he's pretty sure it's supposed to be a 12-inch radius, and being a Les Paul, you'd think it will be a 12-inch radius, but I've been through over this, and I've not measured once, I've measured 15 times, and I'm getting the radius of this fingerboard to be 10 inches, exactly fits a radius of 10 inch, but as far as I know, the owner wants a 12-inch radius, so I'm having to sand this back to, or into a 12-inch radius, and one reason I don't like doing that is, it means I'm going to be removing quite a fair bit of material from the centre of the fingerboard, right on where the radius is. And I'm also going to be removing a little from the edges as well, just to get the shape right and get it even all the way across. And what that means is, my fret slots are not going to be as deep as they were before, which means I've got to recut the fret slots. Now this is going to add 3 hours onto the job. If I have 3 hours of money onto this job, it's another 90 quid. Then you're talking ludicrous money. It's not worth spending that sort of money on a refret. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to charge a little bit on top. I'm going to charge an hour on top, but hopefully I'm going to get it done within 3 hours. And what I'm doing is, at the moment is, I'm going across just with a normal small 12-inch radius block. And I'm re-radiusing using 80 grit sandpaper, and we're getting there. But it's a slow process because we're still low on the edges, and I don't want this to get to where I'm removing too much material. You know, I don't want to remove any more than a millimetre from the centre of this fingerboard, which I'm going to have to remove a millimetre, and I don't like doing that, to be honest with you. But what I need to keep checking is that I'm keeping the fingerboard level. I mean, ideally I want to be doing long strokes like this. I'm going to get the long beam on there in a bit, but only for finishing. And I need to get this radius absolutely bang on, because when it comes to pressing the frets in with a caul, I don't want to be getting it somewhere between 10 and 12, where then the edges aren't going to take in. I need them edges pressing right in, so I need it to be uniform all across the length of the fingerboard. And we are getting there. We're still a bit high. We're being a 12 radius, we're making the fingerboard a little bit flatter. Like I said, we are getting there, but it's not ideal. You can see how much material I've actually moved at the moment. Now we've got the neck still level, still straight, which is good. So I'm going to carry on doing this, and I will come back nearer the time. Make sure we've got the dial still at 0. We're just gone a little bit off 0. Means the neck has moved slightly. But it's not too bad. We'll come off a little bit there, so I need to set that neck again. That's a pitfall with doing a job like this. You're going to get a little bit of movement, and we need to keep it as straight as possible. It's nothing terrible because I can still reposition it now. I mean, I can tell just by feeling where these rods are, if it's in the middle or not. That one's still bang on. That one's moved a little bit, so let's see where we are. We're not too far off. So I will keep testing this, keep checking its level, and I'll come back in a bit, give you an update. So I'm now going with the long beam. As you can see, we've got some 80 grit on there. We're removing stuff mainly from the centre of the fingerboard because it's quite high, it's more curved than it needs to be. 10-inch radius, 12-inch radius. So we're not really moving stuff from the edge, just from the middle. And we are getting close, and I'm going to just zoom in a little, show you how much better it is using the long beam. All I need to do is remove as much as this does. I've removed quite a lot, and I'm reluctant. I don't want to be moving anything really off the edge because we're getting quite low enough down there now. I don't want to go any lower on the edge. We're not really touching the edge. I'm going to remove as much dust as possible. And all we need to keep this even. Now, ideally we could have this inside some rails like you do when you actually radius in a fingerboard. You have this inside a contraction or a jig where this can't move left or right, but because I'm doing it by hand we're getting a little bit of movement sideways. So what I'm trying to do is keep my fingers on the neck and there, and keep it close and as straight as I can at this end, and just, you know, try and keep it as straight as possible. And I'm going to move the camera around to the other side in a moment. I'm going to go across with a radius gauge and just see where we are, because we are getting close to where we need to be. It's a long-winded process, this. You have to take your time with it. Good thing about this is where I had chipped areas, I've more or less sanded all the chipped areas out, so I don't need to repair any chips. Now we're getting really, really close to where we need to be. So a bit of work to do at this end, but we're getting close. Need to do more work at this end. I'm going to check the dials. Dials are still just about on 0. Mouse moved nuts, there you go. Still just about zeroed out. Not too bad there. Need to do a bit more work down this end. Always try and keep it in a straight line. You're not always going to keep it perfectly straight, but you're not going to do too much damage by going a little bit sideways. I mean, we're talking units of millimetres here. Not the perfect way. Well, it's the best way you can do it when you're doing it on a jig. You can't really set this neck inside the jig for cutting fret slots because it's still going to move about. So this is the best way I've found to do it. We're looking really, really good there. Again, checking that we're level. That's brilliant, that's great. We're more level now than we were when we started because I knew the neck was a little bit uneven. We're doing absolutely fine here. That's really, really good. So yeah, really, really pleased with that. So I'm going to move the camera around to the other side. Come back in a second, we'll check that out and you can see how close we're getting the radius. And here we are now, just about ready to do the refret. Now I've had to do quite a bit more work on this guitar because the fret slots had to be deepened. And you're thinking, well, how am I going to do that with binding on there? Well, it's not easy. But there is I went and bought a new tool recently. In fact, I bought it specifically for this job. So don't think I'm going off and spending all your money and going out and getting drunk. I've actually bought this little saw. And it's a two-way saw, it cuts both ways. One way cuts one direction, one cuts another. And how we do is we place this in the slot and we cut the slot. Well, I can't do it, I'm not left-handed, you see. But we're going to do it right-handed. And we go in the slot and we're able to cut inside. It's the curve or the cutting blade on this is 0.4 millimeters wide, which is thinner. It's thinner than the slot itself, but it's great. And you see we've got a two-direction saw there. We've got one cuts one way and one cuts another way. So I've actually gone and cut all 22 or however many it is of these frets inside. But when you get to the corners, you need to get in a little right into a corner. So how I get into a corner is I use a regular Stanley blade just to get right into the corners, just so we get in the depth. And when it comes to checking the depth, that's not I have another little tool which I can't find at the moment, but you can always use something like a feeler gauge just to make sure you're more than 2 millimeters deep, which you're going to need. If I use a 0.5 here for instance, you can use a feeler gauge just to slip in there and just check that you've got a decent enough depth, and we've got plenty of depth there. I do have a little, I've got the depth gauge here, look, there you go. I've got a little gadget here. It's not a gadget, it's just a piece of metal. And we'll take the 10 to 14 measurement side. Now it doesn't fit inside the binder at this end, so you've got to play it by just eye it. But what you do is you just stick that in the slot, and basically if it comes up to that line, which it does, you've gone deep enough. And there's, I hope you can see that, can you? So that is now, the fingerboard is now ready to take the frets. A couple of little scratches go on the fingerboard, which I'm going to fill in with dust later. I'm not going to fill it in before I do the refret, I'm going to fill it in after. What I also do with this is I take a corner piece and I just get it right into that corner just to make sure it's deep enough, which it is. And I've gone through the whole lot. It took a couple of hours to get all this done yesterday. Now you'll notice those with keen vision will notice I've cut slightly into the binding sometimes with the saw. Very, very slightly in these areas. But what I'm going to do is, that chunk fell out anyway. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up some, I've got some dust, some white dust. It's from carving nuts. It's bone dust and it's some plastic dust, some graphite dust. It's all, here you go. That's the kind of gear we're looking at. Can you see that? And I'll mix some of that with a little bit of epoxy. And we'll put a little bit of turmeric in there just to slightly yellow it, and I'll fill these little slots in so you won't even tell. I'm going to do it, mix and match it to the colour of the binding, so you won't even tell once it's done. Actually, this knife is very sharp, so it's kind of weird. When I was pulling it, I did a little bit of something stubborn and it would pull and it would just come right through. It's happened in a couple of areas, but nothing to worry about. We'll get it looking absolutely bang on. You won't even know once I've got it all filled. So that's it. I'm going to end part 2 of this video here because it has gone on long enough. I think we're up to 20 something minutes. That is enough for what you can see my out there, look. Hello. So I think we're going to end part 2 right here, right now. I've got the, like I said, I've got the fingerboard prepped, ready for the frets. So in part 3 we will start getting the frets in. I'm going to glue them in using, I'll tape up the fingerboard, I'm going to cut all the frets, and we're going to stick some, we're going to use Titebond in these slots, get some Titebond in there, and we're going to press all of the frets in. So make sure you tune into part 2, come back for that, and we will see you soon.